If you think you are paying your government through visible mechanisms, income tax, sales tax, or property tax, you are missing the most fundamental, most ancient, and most insidious form of confiscation ever devised by statecraft. The great financial question facing every empire burdened by unpayable obligations, be it Rome, the Weimar Republic, or the modern G7 nations, is always the same. How do you erase a mountain of debt without declaring formal default or provoking open rebellion? The answer is never written into law. It is encoded in the currency itself. The answer is inflation, and make no mistake. Inflation is the silent tax. It is the single greatest act of wealth transfer from the cautious middle class and prudent savers to the deeply indebted state, all performed without public consent or even conscious awareness. This is the oldest, most powerful trick in the economic playbook, and understanding it is the only way to safeguard your wealth from the coming currency debasement. To understand the modern dilemma, we must first travel back 2 millennia to the height of the Roman Empire. The Republic and early empire maintained a strong currency, the silver denarius. This coin was the rock upon which Roman commerce was built. But as the empire expanded, its spending primarily on its legions and extravagant public works began to outpace its taxation capacity. The emperors faced a crushing dilemma: raise taxes and risk internal revolt, or default on the military's wages and risk civil war. They chose a third silent option: debasement. Initially, the denarius was nearly pure silver. Under Nero, the silver content was reduced to 90%. By the time of the Severan dynasty, it was below 50%. By the 3rd century AD, under Gallienus, the denarius was barely silver-plated copper, often containing less than 5% precious metal. The state was literally taking money from its own citizens by diluting the value of their savings without telling them. They didn't raise taxes. They just paid the soldiers with the same coin, but one that contained 95% less real value. This massive hidden wealth transfer, the Roman silent tax, destroyed trust, led to spiraling price chaos, and was a primary driver in the eventual collapse of the Western Empire's economy. This historical playbook is being executed today, only instead of chipping away silver, central banks are using the digital printing press. So how does this debasement work in the modern fiat system? Inflation is not merely rising prices. It is mathematically the devaluation of the currency unit. When a government holds massive debt, say $30 trillion, that debt is a fixed number. If the currency's purchasing power is cut in half by 50% inflation, the real value of that $30 trillion debt is also cut in half. The government has effectively erased $15 trillion of its obligation without raising a single tax or making a single budget cut. Who pays for this debt erasure? The creditor, which is everyone who holds dollars or dollar-denominated assets like bonds and bank savings. The prudent individual who saved $100,000 in a bank account has not lost a single dollar, but they have lost half of their purchasing power. The debt has been transferred from the state to the individual saver. The government receives the relief, and the average citizen suffers the loss of purchasing power, the silent tax. The mechanism that ensures this tax benefits the few while burdening the many is known as the Cantillon effect. Richard Cantillon, an 18th century economist, observed that when new money enters the economy, it does not spread uniformly or instantly. Instead, those who receive the new money, first the government, the large commercial banks and financial institutions, benefit the most. They get to spend the newly created units when prices have not yet fully adjusted, buying assets and services at the old, cheaper prices. By the time that new money trickles down to the average worker and saver through wages or fixed income payments, prices have already risen dramatically. They are left holding the devalued currency, always chasing prices that are already out of reach. This effect transforms inflation into a regressive tax, enriching those closest to the source of money creation, the speculators and the financially powerful, while impoverishing those furthest from it, the workers and the savers. We saw the devastating acceleration of this effect during the hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic in the 1920s. Following the defeat in World War I, the German government could not tax its way out of its massive war debt and reparations obligations. Their solution was to print money relentlessly. This was the silent tax taken to its terminal extreme. The person who lived prudently and held a cash savings account found their life savings vanishing in weeks. A factory worker might be paid twice a day because, by lunchtime, the morning's wages were already worthless. This chaotic, destructive collapse of currency value did not just erase government debt. It annihilated the entire middle class's savings, destroying the social fabric and paving the way for political extremism. Today the playbook is subtler, but the goals are identical. Post-2008, and dramatically during the 2020 crisis, the world's central banks engaged in quantitative easing, essentially creating trillions of new dollars, euros, and yen digitally. This was, by definition, modern debasement. They didn't melt silver. They expanded the digital supply of the fiat currency, buying up government bonds and mortgage-backed securities to suppress interest rates. The goal, tacitly, was not just stimulus, but to finance massive government deficits and gradually deflate the real value of the crushing sovereign debt built up over decades. The consequence is what we see now: a political environment where interest rates are forced to remain below the actual rate of inflation, meaning that your bank savings are guaranteed to lose purchasing power year after year. You are paying the silent tax in the form of guaranteed negative real interest rates. The ultimate reason governments choose this path is political cowardice. Direct taxation is visible, generates public outrage, and costs votes. Formal default is catastrophic, leading to immediate exclusion from global capital markets. But inflation is slow, subtle, and can always be blamed on external factors: oil prices, supply chain snarls, greedy corporations. It is the politically painless way to settle a massive debt score. They understand that most citizens do not understand the Cantillon effect, and they certainly don't understand the complex math of real versus nominal interest rates. They only know that everything feels more expensive, which is precisely the intended outcome of the silent tax. Understanding the cycle from the fractional reserve system to the moral hazard trap, and finally to the silent tax, is the fundamental knowledge required to navigate the coming years of financial engineering. Your defense against the debasement of currency is not merely to save more cash. It is to shift your assets into places that cannot be inflated away by the stroke of a central bank pen. If this historical and economic analysis helps you decode the greatest financial deception of our time and empowers you to protect your life savings, please take a moment to subscribe. By subscribing, you are arming yourself with the strategic intelligence needed to recognize the silent tax and safeguard your prosperity in a time of unprecedented financial uncertainty. Next time, we will transition from theory to actionable strategy. We will put together all the pieces of the debt cycle and answer the most crucial question for your future: the ultimate asset. How to protect your wealth when the system fails. We will explore the characteristics of true wealth that cannot be diluted, debased, or confiscated. Don't miss this essential concluding chapter of our series.